All right, what is up, guys? This is DDP back for a Cowboys Seahawks preview here. You may notice I'm not actually on camera. I didn't want to mess with anything with the webcam as far as lag or anything. So, kind of going with traditional podcast here, but I am joined tonight by Big Game James from Silver and Blue Nation. James, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. I appreciate you. We ain't kicked it in a while. You know what I'm saying? We've been out of the loop for a little bit, so it's good that we're meeting back up, kicking it, and getting to talk about a huge game coming up this Saturday night. One that I'm very excited for, and I'm happy that we get the rematch. I remember when we played them week 3. I was like, I want to play them again, and here we go.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I mean, that week 3 game, it got away a little bit late, but it's one of those games that Dallas, for the most part, was there. They had a couple breaks in coverage that busted it open, and obviously they're going to have to be careful about that because Russell Wilson can pick you apart with those kind of plays. And now they have Doug Baldwin, who was out in that game, so that could be another potential big play threat there for them. But it's largely different. I mean, both of these teams have grown a lot since then. Seahawks have been pretty hot themselves, but Dallas has now a weapon in Amari Cooper that they didn't have before, and I think that greatly changes things. And Van Der Esch hadn't even had his first start yet the last time these teams faced off.
Yeah. I mean, if you, I think there was an article I seen by a guy, he's in the war room. His name is Danny Phantom. I'm sure you probably may know him as well. But he had posted an article, and he wrote about 5 things that were going on in this game that were not going on in that last game. And a few of those things were highlighted. Number one was the biggest one was Earl Thomas is not playing.
Yep. 2 picks in that game.
2 picks in that game, critical picks in that game. He had 7 tackles. I think he was the second leading tackler behind Bobby Wagner. But he made a huge impact in that game. I believe the first interception was off of Gallup, a miscue. We were actually had a pretty decent drive, and, Dak threw a good pass in the Gallup, and he bounced off of him, and Thomas got the ball. And then also when we were driving again late, when it was 24-13 and we still had a chance, and the ball tipped off of Jarwin and he got it again. So he made a huge impact. Just like you said, Sean Lee was starting that game. Van Der Esch was just getting his feet wet, but he did have a few big tackles in that game where you could kind of see. I think he had a big open field tackle in that game, and that's when everybody started getting excited about LVE. I think that was kind of his, I'm not going to say his coming out party, but that was the game where it was a huge game, crazy opponents field, and he played really good that game. I think that was kind of like a coming out party.
Yeah.
And then, of course, huge is Amari Cooper. Just watching that game, I watched the highlights and I watched the game again, DDP, and you could just see, even though we didn't have any viable threats, we were still getting open. Beasley was getting open, Gallup was getting open. We just weren't making the plays. So now you add an Amari Cooper element, and hopefully, let's not hope that Blake Jarwin game was an anomaly and they don't forget about him and say, hey, you just had that big game last week, now we're not even going to throw to you. So
Yeah.
hopefully, Blake Jarwin, he's a added threat. And, we're going to be almost in a full bill of health, and that's going to be huge as well.
Oh, no doubt, no doubt. And you mentioned Leighton Van Der Esch in that game, kind of breaking out a little bit. That was the first game where he really jumped off the screen for me. As you mentioned, Sean Lee starts that game but goes down with a hamstring. And in cleanup duty, Van Der Esch still gets 11 total tackles, 10 solo. That was when it first popped off the page to me, where it was like, holy crap. That's really good for mop-up duty, I mean, I know he played, I think, about 2.5 quarters in that game, but still just a crazy impact to get out of a rookie linebacker in the 3rd game of the season. Speaking of rookie here, the Cowboys as a whole are the youngest team in the playoffs this year with an average age of 26 years and 14 days. Indianapolis is the 2nd youngest, according to Babe Loffenberg. I saw he had a little note on that as well. So incredibly young team, and just think about how young they were in the 3rd game of the season. Like you mentioned Gallup with the critical error earlier. That's guys who have come a long, long way from that first game, and obviously so is Seattle. It's not like you keep moving forward and they stay the same as they were. Everything continues forward, but it's still something where, while that gave us a little bit of like a measuring stick, neither team is really in that same place. But I do know that Dak, being the 2nd most sacked quarterback in the league, Russell Wilson wasn't too far behind. Russell Wilson got sacked something like 46 times, I want to say, off memory. Another guy.
And he also, not to be to cut you off, but it's not like he hasn't been through that. Like I believe the year before that, he's had a problem with offensive line, because I think that's what the Seattle Seahawks were trying to build up in that draft, was getting their offensive line together, because he was getting sacked at a very high rate.
Yes. And yeah, that's been a problem for them for several years. Now he's mobile. He likes to roll out of the pocket to open things up for him passing wise, but it's still one of those situations where the line has gotten him into trouble, and Dallas in week 3 had 0 sacks against him. You can't have a repeat of that if Dallas is going to win this game. They have to get pressure on him and at least bother him. I'm not saying you have to have multiple plays where you got DeMarcus Lawrence chasing him 22 yards into the backfield like he did at AT&T Stadium last year in December. That'd be nice, of course.
Right.
But all the same, Dallas needs to get that pressure and really win the battle in the trenches, because that's going to be Dallas' strength. Zeke ran for 127 yards on, I think, only 17 carries or something crazy like that last year. And if he doesn't have that one costly fumble inside the 10 off his best run of the game, Dallas might end up winning that week 3 matchup. I mean, that's just how precarious things can swing back if you're not careful. And if they win in the trenches and take care of it, they got it, I think.
And not even that, just his fumble, his critical fumble when they were coming back. But remember, they were winning 7-0. And remember, we scored a touchdown, but Zeke ran out of bounds.
Yep.
Passing one. And he tied that game up 7-7. That could have changed the whole trajectory of the game. We had so many little miscues. We shot ourselves in the foot so bad in that game. That's why I came away from that game. I mean, honestly, I had the epic rant. That's where my rant started, was the Seattle Seahawks game. I had to rant about Darreck Prescott. I had to rant about Jerry Jones, Garrett. I went off because I was frustrated, because Seattle, I said it in that rant, Seattle was not a better team than us. And that's why I was so frustrated and was so mad. It was like I felt like we gave the game to them. Even though we didn't even play our best game at all, we still could have beat them. I mean, they were. I mean, obviously, we had problems with the offensive line. Kind of wins was like in his 3rd game as well. So he's a rookie. We gave up like 5 sacks, so that really did hurt us, and they were critical sacks. So that was a problem. But if you just look at it as a whole, we drove the ball. We had opportunities to make plays. Like I said, we tied it up 7-7. Zeke has the out of bounds, and he has the fumble on the long pass play. We have a breakdown in coverage. Just too many things that we did that we just kind of shot ourselves in the foot, that this really didn't give us a chance.
Yeah, the Zeke stepping out of bounds, I remember that was early in the season before they had really started throwing him the ball in anything less than just a check down at the line of scrimmage, and I had been screaming for that for 2 years. They finally give it to us twice in that game, and in both cases he stepped out of bounds, and I was just like, Zeke, you're killing me here.
Right.
One of the broken coverages, you mentioned a 51-yard strike to, I think, Lockett for a touchdown. Jeff Heath got roughed up a little bit the play before and had to come out for a play or two, and Kayvon Frazier got caught having to drop back into coverage and just got absolutely scorched there. We know Kayvon works better when he's playing basically as an additional linebacker, almost, more up around the line of scrimmage as opposed to dropping back deep. But, yeah, there are things there, and I think there are things that you can look at and say, okay, these are all very fixable things. So now we need to, if we're Dallas, we need to see absolutely that Chris Richard can be an X factor just in what he can bring to this game, because the defense is substantially better, I think, than it was at the start of the year. I found some great stats earlier from NFL's Next Gen Stats. I'm throwing it up on the screen here. Highest percentage of targets in tight window throws. The Cowboys have 3 of the top 4 guys, cornerbacks with tight window targets against them this year. So great sticky coverage. Byron Jones, number 1 at 39.5%. Cheeto at 36.3%. Then you have Jackson from the Titans with 35.6%. And then Anthony Brown, 34.5%. So technique-wise, our guys have been right there, glued to the receivers all season, and that's going to be huge, but there is a risk because Seattle has the perfect counter for this. Russell Wilson passing into tight targets. Yards per attempt leads the league at 8.4. Passer rating 103.4, first as well. Pass touchdowns, 9, tied for first as well. So it's like we have this great thing in our to our advantage, it looks like, but then you're like, oh, actually, they might have the perfect counter to that. So it's going to be really interesting, and that's why I put more weight on having to win the battle in the trenches, because if you allow him to kind of roll out and get time he wants to throw on you, you're probably going to hurt a bit from it. And he is the one thing that I fear with Seattle, just because the dude is a machine. I mean, you look at, like, of their touchdowns last season, like, he had like some absurd percentage accounted for because he led them in passing and rushing touchdowns. I can't remember. It was something crazy, like 86% of their touchdowns or something were him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so that's something they're absolutely going to have to figure out. But it's doable. I still feel like it's doable in spite of all of that, just because we have seen what this defense can do. I know that since the Saints game, the Cowboys defense hasn't really had quite the same look. You know, it's a small sample size since then with 3 games. But wait, 3 games? Yeah, because you had the Titans and the Giants now that closed it out, not the... Yeah. Okay, so 2 games, even smaller sample size. But even still, it's interesting to look at, like, okay, was the Saints like a peak moment for the Cowboys defense? Hopefully not. Hopefully it's just that the pressure wasn't as high the last 2 weeks, and the Giants being a divisional rival, you know, stuff happens there, you know.
I think it's excuse me. I think it's a situation where guys get hyped up. Just the Saints coming into town. Everybody knew about the record. Everybody was basically counting us out. Everybody was talking about we hadn't beat any good teams, and that they were going to come in there and thrash us. And sometimes your players play above what they usually do. That's what happens in those big kind of games. I mean, you saw our defense played lights out that game. The Giants game, I don't put any kind of weight in it, because I really don't feel like we came. If you really looked at the way the game was going, I didn't see a lot of blitzing of Eli. If this was a game where we needed that game, we would have been after Eli. You saw in that fourth quarter, after we kind of started getting to where we could win this game, they started dialing up the pressure, and then they were coming out for Eli almost every play. Then you saw okay, now I'm really thinking that defense was vanilla, because, come on, as we said before, we didn't have to win that game. We were going to go play the starters, but they didn't have to win that game. And I don't care what anybody says. People and guys still scout these games. And you don't want to throw everything out against the Giants in this game, and the Seattle Seahawks see this, and then they counter it, and then they go against it in the playoffs. So you can see them using a vanilla-type defense against the Giants, and I believe that's why they got a lot of their yards that they did. And I just feel like that we didn't put in that full kind of package. And it's the Giants. They're playing against the Cowboys. They're going to play out of their mind, because it's the Cowboys. If they were playing against the Bengals and it was the last game of the year, nobody would be talking about this. But since it's the Cowboys, it's the division game, of course they're going to play out of their mind against us.
Fair point. Yeah, I mean, this defense has shown it's certainly capable, obviously, with, like I said, 2 games left. The Giants won a little more vanilla going out there. The only real scare they had was Van Der Esch, who seems to be all right, just got kicked in the shin and it had it swell up a little bit, but that's good.
I think the biggest thing with DDP, to me, if you ask me, my biggest worry, not worry, but maybe fear, is when I saw that Colts game, just that Colts game, the inside rushing.
Yep.
We got to remember, Carson had 100 yards, although he did rush 32 times, I believe.
Yeah, it was like
game.
3.4 a carry or something like that.
But the fact was that they stuck with it. They didn't give up on the run. They weren't having a great passing game. We didn't. Russell Wilson didn't really kill us. He had the one big play, but he didn't really kill us like he usually does with teams, scrambling out the pocket, throwing bombs everywhere, destroying us. So he didn't really. We kind of kept him under control, but they kept staying with that rush, and especially in that second half when they were getting runs that they really needed from Carson, he was giving them to them.
Yeah.
So that was huge in my eyes, because at the end of the day, we had Mac go against 140 yards against us, and it was a lot of times gashing us up the middle. So we had to be leery of that. And Carson had a pretty decent year. I mean, he ran for over 1,100 yards. He averaged 4.7 yards a carry. I mean, he had actually 9 touchdowns, 3 more than Zeke. Averaged 82 yards rushing a game. So it's not like he's a bad player as a whole. So we have to keep our eyes and bottle up that run. Make them one-dimensional. I know Russell Wilson, when he gets hot, and he can do things with his feet, but I still want to shut down that run instantly. Make it to where he has to sit there and throw and throw and throw. Because eventually you put that pressure on him, you scrambling, turnovers happen. You get hit from the back. You don't see a rush coming. Those kind of things happen when you're always constantly throwing the ball. So I really like to choke out the life of that run, shut down the short passing game as well.
Yeah, awesome point there as well. And it'll be interesting to see how the linebacking core in general responds to it. I saw today that Pro Football Focus named Jalen Smith their breakout player of the year. That's awesome for him. So that's going to be him and LVE. I know that they're going to have Sean Lee back in the fold as well. I'm curious to see kind of how they divvy up the snap count there. Sean Lee obviously has played against the Seahawks several times. I'm sure this might be one of those games he can offer you, at least as far as his football IQ, offer you quite a bit as far as being able to detect, analyze plays and all that. It's his health, obviously, that's the biggest factor for him. But I think the athleticism of the Cowboys linebacking core, probably the best, I would say certainly the best young linebacking core, if not a top 3 overall linebacking core in the league. If they can actually win in terms of impacting this game, like at the point of attack or just going sideline to sideline, which they're capable of, certainly, I think this will be a very, very good game for the Cowboys as far as being able to control it, kind of following that 2016 blueprint that they love but haven't been able to execute a whole lot of this year, where they kind of just get up a couple scores and then just try and bleed the clock effectively. I don't know if that's going to be in the fold for them, but if they can get up a little bit early, it's certainly possible. Although, again, Russell Wilson, he does bring a lot of ability to the table, but I think you pointed this out earlier. Even last year when they faced off in Dallas, they held him well in check. Like in Dallas, I think he didn't even have 200 passing yards in the game. It was like 126 passing yards or something crazy. Like they held him largely in check. Last year, the problem was Dallas had to keep settling for field goals. They
exactly
had and then Bailey started missing them.
As I said, even if you go back to 2014 when we beat them in Seattle, Russell Wilson didn't kill us. 2015, the next year when we lost to them, when we had Matt Castle, they beat us 10-9 in the last seconds of the game. You know what I mean?
Yep.
Every year we are right there with them. Russell Wilson, and I'm proud of our defense because even when we haven't had a crazy defense, he hasn't killed us. We kind of had a formula because he's one I've always been worried about because he is so good outside of that pocket. And he can throw a really nice ball. And you've seen a couple plays, I believe, in that game in the week 3, he threw a couple lasers. I think he threw one laser and went right past Cheeto, and Cheeto had perfect coverage on him. So he's good with that, but he has not been able to blow us up. Like I said, if we go back and look at our games that we have played against Seattle, it has been more us, DDP, than them. You know what I mean? If you really look at it where you can say, well, Seattle just dominated them. They haven't. We have shot ourselves in the foot so many times. 2015, man, we had Matt Castle, dog. He is garbage, and we should have beat them that game. I mean, they beat us in the last seconds. We were holding that lead all the way to the last seconds of the game. You get what I'm saying?
For sure.
And Russell Wilson didn't do nothing against us. So when you look at that, people are talking about, oh, we're going to be one and done. Seattle's on this. Yeah, they're on a roll. But Seattle, at the end of the day, look, they're talking about us struggling against the Giants. Who did they play? They played the Cardinals and barely beat them.
Yeah, fair point for sure. Let me ask you this. Do you think that do you think Cowboy fans should hate the Seahawks? I had this question posed to me earlier. They bring up, of course, you have the bad memory of the Romo, botched snap and everything in 2006. Then you have the fact that they end Romo's career on kind of in the preseason game. You have what was another case that they had there? I feel like they had a third example that's escaping me right now, but I'll let you answer first since I asked it as a question.
Yeah, I can't hate on Seattle like that. I mean, I can only hate a team if I hate them. You know what I mean? In Seattle, I just have a healthy respect for Seattle, probably because I respect Pete Carroll. I like what he's brought to the program since he's came over to Seattle. The coaches, obviously, we got Chris Richard from the fold. Your boy left him there, and he went to Atlanta. He's doing a damn good job over there. So they have a good, bracket or umbrella of coaches. I just can't hate Seattle. Seattle, they play tough. They play hard. And if you look at it, it's kind of a mirror image of kind of what we look like. These are two mirror image type teams.
Yeah.
So I definitely can't hate on them because they have the same type of formula and look just like us. I mean, when they won their Super Bowl, producer G has said this numerous times on his own line that when they won the Super Bowl, Russell Wilson wasn't all that as the quarterback. They had a great offensive line. They had a great running game in Marshawn Lynch, good, decent enough receivers, but they had that great defense. And that was the formula that carried them to getting them to the Super Bowl.
Right. No, that's a good point. What I kind of look at for why I don't really hate them, to me, the only way that you can really hate a team is if you're constantly running into them in the playoffs, and if it feels like they're what's in your way. A perfect example of this, pivoting kind of to basketball, would be Mavs Spurs. Right, all those years Mavericks would have 50-win seasons. Seemed like 5 or 6 times they would run into the Spurs, and even though getting past the Spurs, obviously, in none of the seasons, or they had the one year they won the title, but in all the other years where they would actually manage to get by the Spurs, they never still won the title. But it still just felt like it was always like running into them again, and it was like, oh, you again. We only have the 06 playoff game against Seattle. It's been 12 years. Like there's nothing there. There's nothing there. Right. And if you're having to reach for like, oh well, they effectively ended Tony Romo's career, well, yeah, that definitely sucks, and that's not ideal. But your silver lining coming out of that is you have Dak Prescott, who since 2016 with 14 fourth quarter comebacks leads the league. No one since 2014 has more than Dak Prescott does, and that's one of those things that is so quickly overlooked by, I feel like, a lot of fans. And I get it. People are going to have their issues and their beefs with Prescott. I just think that they're quick to point out every negative and incredibly slow, if at all, willing to give credit for something. If he makes...
Go ahead. My bad. Go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, no. I mean, you're good. I was just going to say, I feel like even his great throws, it's more credit to the receiver, or it's like, oh, well, he was only in that position because Zeke and the line got him to that point in the game for him to make well, what the hell, dude? You can't be happy if that's how you view it.
Right. I just, the frustration now, because here's my thing, ever since Dak's been in the league, 2 straight years, when his first 2 years, I pretty much say nothing bad about him. And I mean, that's my quarterback, that's what I was saying. And, I told myself, though, year 3 is the more the Browns, because he had the uneven year last year, I said. But, I've been critical of the throws, holding the ball, the inaccuracies, not the anticipation throws. But at the end of the day, one thing, as I said before, that I always loved about Dak Prescott, when you look at those negatives, he's a winner. Yep. He was a winner at Mississippi State. He took that team from nothing. He took that team from unranked to number 1 in the nation.
Yep.
That was all him.
They beat Bama that year too, right?
Yes. If anybody watched that Mississippi State team that year, it wasn't nobody else but Dak Prescott. He was the whole team. He made that whole team take it to another level. And that's the reason why the Cowboys drafted him. You think they drafted Dak Prescott because he was the greatest thrower in college?
Right.
No, that's not why they drafted him. They drafted him because he had characteristics of a leader, was a stand-up guy, and he was a winner. That's why they drafted him, because he was a winner, and they wanted to win. So they said, we can develop this guy, and maybe he might not be the thrower of a Tony Romo, but he's a winner, and it's been proven. And guess what? 3 years in the league, winner.
Yeah.
Winning record every single year, winning 2 division titles, and it's so funny, like, people just need to chill. Like, I had my criticisms, but guess what? It's just like with Jason Garrett. How I've been on Garrett, but guess what? We were 3-5, and the season looked like it was over, and every Dallas Cowboy fan was feeling that same way. And he kept that ship together. Mm-hmm. It's never been done before, 3-5, us getting to the playoffs. So, yes, I have to give Jason Garrett credit. I'm not going to sit there and be like, oh, well, it wasn't him. It was somebody else. No, it was him in that aspect, controlling this team. So you have to give props where props due. And if you're a real Cowboys fan, you sit there and be like, let it go. We're winning. We're in the playoffs. You're still worried about if he can throw a 5-yard pass. And people who say he can't throw beyond 5 yards, I'm not even listening to them anymore. If anybody says that anymore, I don't respect you as a sports person. I don't respect you as any kind of sports fan or any kind of knowledge of any kind of football. Because I was on our feed, DDP, when we were doing our live show. This dude was throwing lasers, and they're like, "Oh, but he's still, man, shut up."
Yeah, I feel you. Yeah, as if Troy never had a defense or a running back to take him where he needed to go. But
so did Romo. Romo had good teams. Like, people act like, "Oh, Romo never had this." Okay, maybe he didn't have Ezekiel. He had good teams, though. He had good teams. Right. They just choked, and that's just the fault. And people are always going to connect Dak Prescott and Tony Romo, and I don't know why, because Tony Romo never won nothing.
So here's a couple interesting kind of stats with that. Talking about people and their need for him to reach certain milestones, right? What was the initial benchmark they would set? He don't even throw for 200 yards. Well, now he's done that like 7 of the last 8 games. He's not even throwing for 250. Okay, he's done that in like 4 of the last 7 or something. And like they keep moving it out, and then even in a 387 against the Giants, in which he throws for a career high 4 touchdowns, they're still critical of it, and they're moving the goalpost. That's what they're doing, like the figurative goalpost of what they would deem a good performance from him. Rick Goslin had a great tweet on this. He said, 300 yards is like the standard great game quarterbacks are measured by, like in public perception, and they're like saying a quarterback needs to show he can win games with his arm, right? Except those 300-yard games are not an accurate barometer. There were 132 such games last season, and quarterbacks owning them posted a 64, 66, and 2 record. So a losing record in games where the quarterback threw for 300 yards at least. Dak, meanwhile, when Dak plays well, which that could be anything as from a low end of 160 to, as we saw last Sunday, a high of 387. When Dak plays well, they're virtually unbeatable. Like 25-1 when he doesn't commit a turnover, 23-1 when he has a passer rating of or at or above 100. Like, the dude wins. And again, it's year 3, and you talk about what he's accomplished, and you can say, well, he has the benefit of having a good defense and a good running back. Okay, but would you weigh that against it?
It kills me when people say that, like, okay, that's not his fault. Like,
yeah, exactly.
How did Tom Brady win those Super Bowls?
Right.
He had a defense. He had weapons. He had players that help make him better. I mean, people be killing me like, well, what was he supposed to do? Like, is he supposed to have a terrible offensive line? This is what you're supposed to do when you win a Super Bowl. You're supposed to have those type of elements that help your quarterback win the game. He can't do it by himself.
Sure. And speaking of, you mentioned like Brady, for instance, if we're talking about like this stage in their career, so the first 3 years, Prescott has 4,263 more yards than Tom Brady in his first 3 seasons, 36 more touchdown passes than Drew Brees had, 18 fewer interceptions than Ben Roethlisberger, and has started 48 more games than Aaron Rodgers. I got that from Jean-Jacques Taylor here in Dallas. He had an article today talking about why the locker room, why the team so fiercely follows Dak Prescott, and like what internally keeps them from losing faith in him, even with all the outside noise. Which great read if you haven't seen it yet.
But you know what? I mean, players that play the game. I mean, I played sports. I'm sure you have too, DDP. You know, inside of a locker room, we don't care about the outside.
Sure.
Okay. The players never listen to the outside noise. They don't listen to the chatter of the outside noise. Of course, you're going to hear it, but they don't pay no attention to us fans. You know what I'm saying? Like, they really don't. Like, they don't, because at the end of the day, they don't. A fan is going to turn on them in 2 seconds. 1 minute he can throw a dime. Man, did you see that? And next minute he'll throw a duck. Man, but Dak Prescott sucks. So you feel me? They don't care about what the fans think. They care about, just like he said, I posted a couple articles on my page where he says, only thing I care about is the respect of people in this locker room.
Mm-hmm.
All thing I care about is, do these guys believe in me? As long as I got respect from them, that's all that matters. And that's the truth. That's all that matters. And at the end of the day, I don't care what all these other Cowboys fans are talking about, Dak this and Dak that. Man, just shut the hell up, because Dak has got us in. And, you know, another thing that kills me is when they say, oh, he's inaccurate. I looked, and I last time I checked, when you're a quarterback, you had the barometer of any kind of good quarterback was around 64 to 65 completion percentage. That's what you want to have as a top-tier type quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
For his career, 66.
Yep. No, I mean, that's...
So where do we get the inaccuracies? You know what I mean? I mean, for his career, yes. And then when we watch, everybody calls Dak the dink and dunk. Well, hell, when I look at a lot of these quarterbacks right now, they're not throwing bombs. Okay?
Yeah.
They're not throwing bombs. They're throwing dink and dunk passes that are getting them down the field to score a freaking touchdown. And then guess what? If the play calls it for it to be open, then go deep. But there ain't nothing wrong with dinking and dunking if you can take it down the field and score every time.
Sure. And if the team didn't have its red zone issues, maybe that wouldn't be quite as prevalent, but then they would just find the next excuse. For instance, his game winner against the Giants, that brilliant pass to Cole Beasley. Beasley makes a phenomenal grab too. But I mean, to me, that's a case of phenomenal throw, phenomenal catch. Like I give both guys all the credit in the world for that play. If you have the angle directly behind Dak, there's nothing there. I mean, he throws Beasley open on the play, and Beasley, and just on the same page, gets right there. But even then, talking about it, you still have people who will comment, well, he could have had it earlier. He missed a throw to Amari Cooper like 2 plays earlier. Really? You're going to focus on that? He wins the game with phenomenal fashion. You can't argue that, so you pivot instead to saying, oh, he missed this. Amari Cooper slipped on one of those targets they're talking about. Like, it's not the same, and even if it was, it still doesn't make it a valid point. The guy throws a phenomenal throw, wins the game for you. Just like it. Shut up and like it. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like so much of the Dak hate comes from within his own fan base, which is frustrating to me because it's like, you know, as America's team and, you know, all the hate the Cowboys get around the country, obviously they get a lot of love too, but, you know, all these different fan bases would label the Cowboys as like their top rival. Not just within the division. Like historically, you'll have Pittsburgh or San Francisco or someone probably still say that in a lot of cases. And it's like, we already got all that negativity out there. Why do we need it within our own fan base as well towards a player that has done pretty much nothing but win? He's 32-17 in his career as a starter for the Cowboys. I mean, it's just unreal the success he's been able to have, especially when you consider how disappointing we felt last season was.
13-3, 9-7, and 10-6, and we're mad at that.
Yep.
Man, our fan base sucks at times. Like, it really does. Like, and like I said, it's okay to be critical. I've been critical of Dak. You've been critical of Dak. People have been critical of Dak, but that doesn't mean you say, I'm done with him. You just say, hey, I'm a little critical of you. I want you to get better because I like you. I like your style. I think you're the guy. I like your leadership. I like how you're a winner, and I know you can do it. So yes, you'll be critical, but that doesn't take. You still shouldn't bash. And I just wonder. I'm just throw it out there. I probably shouldn't because I always keep quiet about it. I always keep quiet about this with Dak Prescott. But you know what? And I don't like to throw this out there, but I just feel like sometimes the race thing comes into play with this. I just feel like it does. I just feel like some people just don't want to move on from certain things. And it just feels like, why else sometimes would you hate on this man? Like, what? Because when he came in, right, he came in for Romo. He was the darling. Everybody loved Dak. Then the next year when he didn't win, people hated him. And I'm trying to figure out why. When we had all the controversy last year with Ezekiel Elliott and people getting in trouble, was Dak Prescott getting in trouble?
Right.
Was Dak Prescott doing anything wrong? No, he kept it together. Even through all the criticism, he kept it together. He's always maintained his level of calmness and coolness. You know what I'm saying? And that's why people follow you.
Right.
You don't get rattled when the media and all these people are running their mouths. He keeps it together. And even Amari Cooper said, I've never seen somebody, every time we come to the huddle, clapping, giving everybody high fives. I've never seen that. And what was his last statement? This goes back to what I was saying. Like Amari Cooper said, he's a winner. And when you have a winner, we have Vash Lombardi. He was on a show a couple of weeks ago. And when you're a winner, he was stressing that. When you're a winner, teams pay not for you 5,000 yards and 50 touchdowns a year. Teams pay for winners. As soon as you do not win, you will be cut. You can throw for all those yards. And I'm going to bring up Kirk Cousins one more time because he was a fourth-round pick, just like Dak Prescott. And he just got an $84 million contract, and they were in the NFC Championship last year. You feel me? Fully guaranteed. You paid a man who never won anything. This guy's got a record of 5-24 against winning record teams.
Mm-hmm.
You give him and shell out $84 million because he can throw the ball. That's why they got him, because he can throw the ball, and you have a perceived thing that he's better. But guess what? The former GM of the Redskins said he wasn't going to pay Kirk Cousins that money because he wasn't a top-tier quarterback. And he gets the can, and he is right. Kirk Cousins goes to the Vikings. They don't even make the playoffs, and he's a fourth-round pick, just like Dak Prescott. But Dak Prescott has an overall better record than Kirk Cousins has ever had, and yet he has $84 million, and yet we don't want to pay Dak Prescott any kind of money.
Yeah, I mean, when Kirk Cousins was drafted, Dak was in his freshman year at Mississippi State, and Dak has only 2 fewer career wins than Cousins does at this point in his career.
Exactly.
4 fewer years in the league. Now, I know Cousins didn't immediately start because of RG3, but, I mean, pretty much by year 2 he was having to, because the RG3 thing was a 1-year wonder. But still just kind of incredible how that all shakes out. And, yeah, that's another good point, too. You can have the guy that throws for all the yards, but if you can't win in winning time, then what's the point? What are you paying for? You're paying for empty numbers.
You feel me? They did better with Case Keenum. They would have been better keeping Case Keenum, but they didn't want to get Case Keenum. You know why? Because he wasn't a name player.
Right.
Let's go get a name player like Kirk Cousins because he's throwing all kind of yards. But Washington wasn't winning. They had one winning record, and even that winning record was 9-7.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It wasn't an impressive 9-7. He didn't not lights out anybody. So it's just crazy. People, those guys pay for the perceived of the numbers. But at the end of the day, you should pay for people who win, because that's what gets you championships at the end of the day, winners. And that's what Dak is. So you know what? Dak frustrates me, and I'll yell at him in the game. But at the end of the day, I'm chilling. Dak is my guy. Yes, I get frustrated, but this dude has just proved it once again that he's a winner, dog, and I'll keep that on my team any day of the week, somebody who can win, and I know that we always have a chance. Now, do I get a little worried when we're down like 14 points that, will we be able to come back? Yes, I'm still a little worried about that, but at the end of the day, dude is a gamer, and we keep that team, if we keep close in that game in that fourth quarter, I do have confidence he can pull it out.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And, I mean, he showed even in 2016, they fall behind. It was something like, 21-3? He brought them all the way back to tie it at 31. Now, that was him
right.
to Dez. That was like the one game that was really connecting and finding stride. But, I mean, he can do it. I like when he turns the ball loose and when he plays a little more aggressive. I think he's a hyper-conservative quarterback I think it's been kind of drilled into his head, and with this coaching staff that likes to be hyper-conservative as well. At times, it's just completely short-circuits everything. They're so prone to being like, all right, let's just try and get the lead and then grind out the clock. Well, when that's not working, when they're not building the lead, it's just like they're still stubbornly trying to stick to that philosophy, and I think it throws them off. That was part of what was so exciting about the Giants game, is he was driving the ball downfield, like you said, throwing lasers, and it was like, whoa, okay, we're back in like 2016 mode here. This is awesome. Like, this is really encouraging to see before the playoffs, and part of that was just how the Giants were playing, 2 deep safety, and that they were so spread out. It allowed him to throw more to the middle of the field, which isn't his most typical, area to throw to. And you also said this earlier, Jarwin finally broke out, and I'm hoping that isn't just a one-hit wonder, that he can at least be a reasonable weapon for them going forward, because they've needed a tight end all year, and although they have in the second half of the season found sparse production there, it just hasn't been the same as what they've had in years past. So if they can add that to this dimension, to this offense, just like they were able to make the Cooper trade and add a real number 1 home run threat wide receiver, then you've addressed the 2 biggest weaknesses.
Well, I can tell you right now, we don't have to go into the draft saying tight end now. I just feel that, in my opinion, I'm not going goo gaga over the one-game performance. But I definitely did say before the season started and last year that Blake Jarwin was the guy that was going to be the number 1 tight end eventually out of everybody else. I've been saying that now, even though I was looking kind of stupid this whole season because Blake Jarwin ain't been doing nothing. But it made me feel good that he kind of came in the fold, because I was looking at the training camp last year and he looked impressive before he got hurt. And if they activated him because the Philadelphia Eagles were trying to take him off the practice squad last year, and they activated him in that game so they couldn't get him. So that had to tell them something. So I'm sure the Cowboys are sitting there thinking, yo, we're excited about this because this is what we thought. So now if they're seeing that, and Jeff Swain didn't have a bad year. Jeff Swain has been steady. And Schultz has come on in the few games, getting good catches, blocking better, Simon, playing more level. Rico Gathers, let's not even talk about him. I believe that experiment's over. He's got 3 catches all year. Yep. I believe that experiment is over, and I believe Rico Gathers is just using that money that he's getting from the Dallas Cowboys to fund his music career.
Yeah, I'd say that's pretty safe bet at this point. Let's see. Let's talk a little bit of the injury report here. Tavon Austin limited in practice this week. He is questionable for the game. I imagine he plays. He played in the Giants game and made a couple nice plays. So I imagine we still see him. Tyrone Crawford, full participant for Thursday. So that's encouraging. He is not even listed as doubtful or questionable or anything. He is a go. David Irving, this is going to go into a sidestep here. I'll skip over talking about him, but he's out. We'll get on to the David Irving thing in just a moment. Sean Lee, full participant. Martin, full participant. Tyron Smith, full participant. Xavier Suafilo, he is doubtful. Has not played all week. It looks like Connor Williams will plug in as well in that position. So there's going to be some concern there potentially. I thought Connor looked all right when he had to go in against the Giants, but at the same time, I don't know. I feel like Xavier, with him, that first game he played was so great, and everything after felt like diminishing returns. So I don't know exactly how to read that. And then also Darian Thompson is questionable as well, just a reserve safety, probably a special team guy.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I know about the Xavier thing. It's kind of, people are like, oh, play Xavier because he's better than Connor Williams. I don't think Xavier is better than Connor Williams. The only thing I think Xavier had on Connor Williams was girth. That's it. I don't believe he's a better.
Do you think he had more of that mean streak or nasty streak to him, though?
I don't think so. I think Connor Williams has got a mean streak too. He's just light. It's not his fault that he got drafted and they plugged him at a guard at 295.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? It's not his fault that the Cowboys put him in that position because they were so in desperate need of a guard. That's what Cowboys do. If they're in desperate need of something, they'll draft you and they'll put you and plug you in right in that spot. No ifs, ands, or buts. And once they drafted him, you knew what spot he was going to when we were losing that position with Cooper, and I had already lost it with Leary. So you knew he was going there. I've seen him twice up close. Well, I've seen him numerous times, but, when you're on the field, like we were DDP, he's not big. I mean, he's big, but he's narrow. He's not wide. So when you're playing a guard position, you're going against, 1-tech, 3-tech, no tackles that are 330 pounds. You're going to struggle. But that doesn't mean Xavier is a better player than him because he doesn't have better footwork. He's not athletic as Connor Williams, not even close to that. And he's not a technician like Connor Williams is. Connor Williams is a better player than him. He just doesn't have the girth, and that's what his issue has been. And plus, he's a rookie. You know what I'm saying? He's going to have his rookie issues. He's played better down the line, and I believe Connor Williams will have a standout game. I'm going to go ahead and bank on it and call Connor Williams going to have a standout game, and he's going to match out and play night and day better than he did in that first game.
Yeah, that's definitely going to be needed. Like I said, they got to win in the trenches. They got to make sure that Zeke can still control the game for them. That was part of the problem in the Week 3 game, and I know it's all we have to base off of, even though both teams have changed so much since then. Zeke, 127 yards in that game. The fumble was back-breaking costly. The stepping out of bounds was costly. Usually when you see that kind of production out of Zeke, let alone that kind of yards per carry, 7.9 a carry, usually the Cowboys are more in control of things, but that's one where I'm trying to think what the final was in that game. Wasn't it something like 23 to
14?
14?
No, 24 to 14.
24-14, okay. Yeah, so definitely something that they're going to have to work on. Usually you see more control there, but you pointed out Zeke gives up one touchdown, then with the fumble possibly gives up a second, at least the difference in the game, a field goal to make 10-point differential there from just 2 plays of Zeke. So
right.
We'll see.
And as we've seen before, DDP, you know it as well as I know, one play can change the whole outcome of the game.
Oh, yeah.
Who knows if we score that touchdown, make it 7-7, that could have been a whole change of the game. You know what I'm saying? They started getting, and plus we're in Seattle. That stadium is not an easy place to win. That's one of the hardest stadiums to go in and play with the 12 men, okay? And we banged with them the whole time. So that gave me encouragement. And like I said, the main reason why I was frustrated leaving that game was because I felt like Seattle was not better than us, and we should not have lost that game. And that's why my rant came out, because we should not have lost that game. And so I'm not going to believe that now that we're playing the playoffs that they're going to beat us now, when I didn't believe they should beat us in week 3.
Right. And I feel like I saw somewhere earlier, if I had the stat in front of me, I would pull it up again. I feel like I saw something that the Seahawks, their road wins this year, they don't have any wins over a team that currently has a winning record on the road this year. I feel like I saw that stat somewhere. So maybe that's encouraging for us here. Maybe it means nothing. It's one of those things you could throw out there and then the game comes around and it means absolutely nothing. You just have to see. But it is something that it caught my eye, and I think I might have retweeted it on Twitter because that's where I think I saw it. But I didn't post it to the page, I don't think. So that would have been something interesting as well. But yeah, I'm excited to see where this game goes. I'm excited that we actually have playoff football again, even though it was only a 1-year hiatus. It felt like an eternity just because of how many questions and how much doubt has surrounded this team in the last little over calendar year. The fact that they're now, for a team that's won 7 of its last 8, it feels like nobody is giving them a chance. Like, they are among all 12 playoff teams, they are like the 3rd worst odds to win the Super Bowl right now in Vegas, I think, which is kind of crazy considering we know how good the defense is, and it's got to just be that they don't believe in Dak and the offense, which until last week's red zone, scoring was 31st in the league. So some validity there, but still crazy to me that the disrespect they get despite winning 7 out of 8.
Nobody believes in the Cowboys. I mean,
they play better that way, though.
And I'm not mad at that. Please keep down this. I mean, I told myself that, I said Jason Garrett ain't gonna win nothing, and now it looks like he has a chance. He's done things that we never did. So hell, I felt like saying, well, I'm gonna keep on saying you suck. Maybe if you keep saying you suck, then we'll win a Super Bowl. Then I'll look like the winner, not the loser. You know what I'm saying? But just looking at it like this, I mean, if you look at the Vegas and the odds, they're going to say that because Dallas has not done anything in the last 20-something years to prove anybody different. I mean, It's just the real. We don't want to believe that, and the Cowboys fans hate hearing that. But at the end of the day, we have choked. We have come up short. We have always shot ourselves in the foot. So the odds aren't going to be for us when we go into the playoffs in the Super Bowl because they've seen so many times for us to choke. So I'm cool with that. Say we're going to choke. And I've been watching. I don't know who it was, but I was watching. It just slipped my mind. Saying that T.J. Houshmandzadeh was saying that we were one of the worst teams in the playoffs right now. He had a lot of factual basis. He had a lot of good basis of things that they were saying. But that's cool. People can say that, but at the end of the day, it's just an opinion because you still have to play the game.
Yeah.
You can have all the stats you want. You can say we're the worst team. You can say the Vegas odds, this and that, but you still have to play the game, and the game has to be played Saturday. And they were saying we weren't going to have a chance against the New Orleans Saints as well, and guess what happened?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. One quick question here before we wrap up. You mentioned Jason Garrett and how he's kind of held this team together and, winning 7 of the last 8 after a 3-5 start. No Cowboys team had ever made the playoffs after a 3-5 start. Do you think that he is, A, already locked up an extension, or B, or I guess B would be, what do you think it would take for him to win an extension? I messed up the premise, but you get the gist of the question.
Jason Garrett ain't going nowhere.
Okay.
I believe he has locked up an extension. I believe one will probably be in the works. He's not going anywhere. Jerry Jones, this is all Jerry Jones need to see. This is all Jerry Jones need to see out his good old boy, Jason Garrett, because it's never been done. It hasn't been done. And so what do you think Jerry Jones is going to look at? He's gonna say it's never been done before.
Right.
So why would I follow? You know what I'm saying? I'm not saying I even know this dude's brain, but damn, I've been a Cowboys fan my whole life, and I've been around Jerry Jones. Me and Jerry Jones have a relationship of 20-some years. Okay, so I know a little bit of how Jerry works, maybe 2% of how Jerry works, but I know one thing about Jerry: when he loves you, and he don't let you go when he loves you. And it had to be some kind of craziness for it to happen. So, and he has that unquestioned loyalty to Garrett. He said his dad was like the man in there for 40 years. So anything that Jason can do, anything positive, it's going to make Jerry say yes, yes, yes. And what we did this year, 3-5 to go 10-6 to make the playoffs, Jerry's already like, we good. I'm not getting rid of him. And I was looking at something, DDP. For the record, if you look at Jason Garrett's record, I mean, it's frustrating. But when you look at his record, he's only had one losing season in his 9 years. Mm-hmm. And it's without his starting quarterback. All the other years has been 500 and above. And he's had 3 NFC East titles in his 9 years. 3 in the last 5.
Yeah. That is quite eye-popping for sure.
You know what I'm saying? So we mad at him. We frustrated. I know I am, but I think it's just because it's like, dude, you've been having this success and get it there. You know what I'm saying? Get over the hump. It's like you're right there, and people want to believe. I want to believe. Like I've tried to believe. I told you my sister hated him from day one, and I was trying to say he's okay, sis. He's okay. Nah, I hate Jason Garrett. I hate him. Mm-hmm. I'm like, he's okay. Then it just turned to my frustration of, come on, dog, are you ever going to win this or not? So, hey, I mean, if this was a time to really silence doubters and shut everybody up, this is a perfect time to do it, Jason Garrett, because the NFC was down. I said at the beginning of the year, DDP, the NFC was down this year. The division was down this year. It was not going to be that division. I felt it wasn't going to be that division that everybody was hyping it, and it was a down year for the division. And we can bang with anybody in the NFC. We have the team right now. And these guys are throwing the rookie deals. Let's get something before we got to pay them.
Yeah. No, absolutely. My stance on Garrett.
You called it before you finished that. You called it on a Zeke, and I think you might be right on that. You called it, and you said, and you had a lot of people getting you had quite a bit of backlash saying, will Zeke get a second contract? You know what? You're making a lot of sense what you said, and it makes more sense than giving him this heavy workload, running them down, and then let's say you get a Super Bowl. Are you really going to sign Zeke?
Yeah, no, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's a valid question, and even that coming up the other day, I had some people sending me the article about how the Jaguars are already trying to get rid of Leonard Fournette, and people bringing that up like, see, here's another number 4 pick, and he didn't work out. Do you really want to give up on Zeke already? And I'm like, yeah, this shows that drafting doesn't always work out, but Fournette was never the complete back that Zeke is. Right. You gotta look at everything. Fournette's a one-cut downhill guy, and there's differences there. But yeah, that was definitely. I think as far as my stances on Cowboys stuff go, that's probably been my most controversial one. Even though I feel like I've made at least a reasonable argument for it. But we'll see what they end up doing with that. The workload does suggest that maybe it's at least in their consideration. For Garrett, I look at it as he could potentially already be safe, but for me, if Dallas comes out slow and flat-footed in this game, then I think you got to look at it from this standpoint. In 2014, they came out, remember, against Detroit, they were down like 17-3, or it was like, yes. Then you get that Terrence Williams touchdown right before half that was like 50-something yards. And that completely changed the complexion of the game because instead of being down 17-3, you're, I think, 17-10, and you're getting the ball, if I recall, for Dallas. So that was a slow start that they woke up and they managed to win that game. Then they weren't able to close it out against Green Bay. 2016 rolls around. They come out incredibly flat, fall down like 21-3, climb all the way back, but don't come back and win. If it happens again, then I feel like, because Jerry has said this year, he thinks he thinks this is a very talented Dallas team. He thinks this is a team capable of winning it all. So if in the divisional round at home, if they come out flat-footed again and they get beat by a team that Dallas is, I think bare minimum, I think Dallas is better as a complete team than Seattle right now. And maybe you might say, oh, the only thing you really measure against is maybe the quarterback. But I feel like you look at that and say, if it's 3 times in a row, 3 playoff years in a row for Dallas that they come out and they're flat-footed, what's the common theme here? You know, who's getting these guys out there and preparing them and game planning and doing all that? I
Right.
still think it's a small chance, but I feel like if something like 2016 were to happen again, I think there's more consideration to it given other events, because he can look at it as, hey, if we don't make that trade for Amari Cooper to pull Garrett's butt out of the fire, this season goes down the drain and he might not have even seen the end of the year. So I think probably Garrett stays, but I do think there is the highest chance we've seen yet that he could be out.
But you know what? If we look at even the 2016 when we came out flat, we battled back, and Jerry will look at that we battled back, and he'll also look
doesn't
at.
mean anything though.
I mean, let's be honest though. Green Bay played a game that was one of those weird games where you just felt like Green Bay was kind of going to get us because it was just weird. They were making catches and Aaron Rodgers was throwing throws, and it's just like, come on, dog. And this dude, Mason Crosby, was kicking field goals out of this. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
You making 55-yarders, 57-yarders. You know what I mean? You're just looking like, okay, and then even as bad as we had played, if Byron Jones doesn't make that mistake, we win.
Right. But I still think that even with battling back and even with it taking crazy passes from Aaron Rodgers and kicks from Crosby and guys like that, and Jared Cook with that sliding grab, even if it's taking just absurdly good plays to beat you, the end result is still the same. It's still the season is still a disappointing finish, because 2016 I felt like the team was good enough to get to an NFC Championship game, if not maybe get to the Super Bowl. I still wasn't quite ready to say I thought they were a favorite, but I thought that they were capable based on how we had seen them play throughout the season. 2014, that team, that's like the heralded team for like, oh, that was the Dallas team that was going to do it. They struggled in the playoffs too. I mean, not just the Dez catch no catch thing, which would have been the equivalent of like an Aaron Rodgers play from 2016, right? Like the teams make the plays against us, we don't really make the plays ourselves. But you still had the coming out flat against Detroit, and you have like the DeMarco fumble when he's got about 80 yards of open turf in front of him. And I mean, it's just plays like that where it's like at some point something comes down to like, all right, something the vibe, something with the leadership in the locker room isn't right. Well, 2014's team is really nothing like 2016, 17, and 18 now. So what's the one common thread we got? Linehan and Garrett. I feel like there's got to be some accountability there, because end of the day, whether it took an amazing Aaron Rodgers pass to beat you and then a Crosby kick, or you lose 49-0, all that matters is wins and losses. You know what I mean? That's what it all boils down to. So if this team can't come out and at least, if they can't win a playoff game, I don't think there's any business for Garrett to come back. Now, that doesn't mean he won't, but if they can't at least get to the divisional round and be competitive, then I don't know what we're even doing with this leadership, because Garrett's got about 85 to 90% of everything in place that you could possibly want. And if it still feels like he's this far away, then how much more can you really make perfect for him? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I mean, I totally feel you on that. Like, I mean, I've been screaming it from day one about Garrett. I don't care about. I told you, I don't care about the regular season. Obviously, I care about it, but the regular season doesn't mean anything to me with Garrett. It's the playoffs, because he's had great regular seasons. I mean, he's had a 13-3. He had a 9-7. He had just recently had the 10-6. He had the 8-8, and they were competing for a title. Each one of those games, each one of those 8-8 seasons came down to the last game of the season where they could have been in the playoffs or out. So each year except the 4-12 season, he's been right there for the playoffs every single year. Every single year he's been there. So the thing is, though, you've been there, you've been close, but you haven't done anything about that. So are you a Marvin Lewis? Because Marvin Lewis did it. Marvin Lewis was going to the playoffs every time but couldn't win a playoff game. Finally, after 15 years, he gets the axe. You get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
So you look at all those years that he was there at Cincinnati, those are wasted years to me. Because, you got in the playoffs, what do you got to show for it? You didn't win one playoff game. You get what I'm saying? So my thing is, you're judged by those wins, but you're judged by them playoffs. After a certain point in time as a coach, you can have winning records like an Andy Reid.
Mm-hmm.
He's had plenty of winning records, but he hasn't won the big one. So nobody really looks at those regular season records with Andy Reid now.
Hey, I'd take Andy Reid over Garrett because at least he got to the NFC Championship game like 5 years in a row and at least one Super Bowl appearance.
Right. But at the end of the day, he still hasn't won it. You know what I mean? And
I agree.
That haunts him because they always say Andy Reid, when he gets to the playoffs, what do they say about him? He's going to choke.
Yeah. Well, look at this, too. Like, Garrett, he's been here 8 full years as a head coach, and he had 2.5 more as an offensive coordinator. So if you look at that, we're like 11 years of Garrett into this experiment. And this will be his 3rd trip to the playoffs. Wait, 4th trip overall if you include the whole 11 years? Because they went in 07 and lost. They went in 09. Then they didn't go again until 14. Was it? No, we went in 11, right? No, 11 was during 8 years. God, there really was that long of a gap in there.
Mm-hmm.
So 07, 09, 14, 16, 18 are his years. So in those appearances, he's got, as a head coach, 1 win, right?
Right.
As an offensive coordinator, he has 1 win. So we're Can you guys hear me? Let me know in the comments if you guys can hear me now. I think I got my mic working. Connection looks to be solid again. I'm going to try and get Big Game James back here. And we're pretty much going into the wrap-up of the show. Let me see. Okay, good. They can hear me. Cool. Let me get Big Game James back on here. And then we're good to go. 1 sec, guys. All right. Run it back. Let me mute until he's aware he's actually on here. Don't have him yet. Okay. Was not able to get James back on. Okay, so I guess I'll go into the wrap-up here. Thanks again to James for jumping on here with me, talking Cowboys, Seahawks, and just some good Cowboys talk. It's been a minute since we were able to get Big Game James on here with us, so very nice to catch up with him, talk some Cowboys. Oh, hey, there I am. See if the frame rate holds up. Did Darius Jackson finish the last game? He played in the last game. Yeah, he got through the game. I imagine we probably see some more from... Or I imagine we don't see Darreck Jackson in this game. That was just in relief of Zeke since he was a late scratch. Let me see here. Oh, James saying I got him now. Let me try and bring him in. That's not what it is. There we go. All right, this should bring James back in with us. Hold on. Hold on. And all right, so we're back. Testing. Test. McTesterson. Test. Bro. Mother effing test. Test. Oh, hey, I'm back. Alright, I don't know what's going on with my computer. Something's jacked up. I'm just going to have to go into the wrap-up on this show. Guys, sorry for the train wreck ending on this show. Again, great show. Thank you to my guest, Big Game James, for coming on. Good to catch up. If you haven't already, like this video, please, in spite of the little bit of train wreck there at the end. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell, and tune in. We will be talking plenty more Cowboys, giving you our reaction to the playoff game Saturday night against Seattle. And, hey, tell you what, after that game, if they win, we're going to give you instant reaction and talk about it as well. For the upcoming matchup. And if they lose, which, again, I don't think will happen, but if they lose, we will do a reaction to that game plus a season in memoriam as well. So, thank you, everyone, for tuning in. And remember, every legend was once a prospect. Salute.